Disclaimer. This is an audiobook recording performed for entertainment purposes through fair use. I do not claim any of the text being read to be mine or written by me. This is Twisted by Laurie Halse Anderson. Warning. This story is not for children. It contains talks of abuse, violence, assault, both sexual and physical, drugs, alcohol, and suicidal ideation. Listener discretion is advised. 71. Yoda talked the whole way to the river, but I couldn't hear him. It felt like an oversized batting helmet was on my head, like the ear holes weren't lined up and the brim dripped over my eyes. Turn here, I finally said. Yoda turned into the park entrance and slowed down for a speed bump. Go all the way to the end, I said, then take a left. When we turned into the parking lot that fronted the river, I pointed to the farthest row of spaces where the gravel bled into the grass, 10 feet from the edge of the riverbank. He parked and we got out. The wind had picked up, blowing an empty swing on the playground back and forth, making a small white cap. We were the only people there. That's some nasty water, Yoda said. Chemical plant upstream. Does this have anything to do with you running away? He asked. She told you? I just hung up with her when you rang the bell. A big gulp cup floated by. I grabbed my backpack. This won't take long. He followed me to the water's edge. What are you doing? I unzipped the pack, took out a box of ammunition, and dumped a handful of bullets. I brought my arm back and threw them as hard as I could. They sailed in an arc, then dropped fast and hit the water with a heavy plop, plop, plop. Yoda's eyes bugged. Jesus God, Tyler! Are you throwing bullets into the river? I threw another handful. Observant you are, I said. Where'd you get them? My father. Another handful. Wait, stop. The metal's bad for the fish. They're not going to blow up. I paused and looked at the oily foam collecting in the weeds. You really think there are fish in there? Maybe not now, but bullets won't exactly be a welcome for them. I can't throw them in the garbage can. What if a kid finds them or they blow up when the dump truck comes and they get compacted? We can Google it at my house. There has to be an approved method for bullet disposal. Can I throw the gun in? Yoda grabbed his knit cap with both hands. The gun? You have a gun? What the hell's going on? I pulled the Barada out of my backpack. This won't hurt the fish, I said. And if I take it apart, I ejected the clip and removed the barrel. Can't hurt anybody. I threw the clip and the barrel north and pitched the grip south. When I threw the grip, I could feel my sore ribs and shoulders. Yoda watched me as the metal pieces slammed into the water and were swallowed too. My eyes started leaking and my nose too. I let my hair fall in front of my face and looked down at my hands. You okay? I nodded my head and wiped my eyes. Guns are dangerous. Yeah, that's what they say. I turned my hands over. The blisters from the batting cage burned on my fingers and palms. My calluses from the summer were a memory. I bit the biggest blister and the water poured out. Yoda looked in the backpack. You got any grenades in there? Nope, that's it. He picked up the pack and slung it over his shoulder. You took 47 strikes before you hit a ball today. 47? I counted. We walked to the car and I put my backpack between my legs and buckled my seatbelt. He started the engine. 47? I asked. You sure? Yep. That's a lot. I wasn't going to say anything. He checked the mirror and backed out, then put it in drive. There were 4 virgin blisters on my left hand and 5 on my right, plus the popped one. A blister is a defense mechanism, Mr. Pirelli explained on my first day of work. He told me to keep them clean and bandaged and remember to use gloves next time. I bit the blisters, popping all of them open, rubbing them on my jeans. Felt like my hands were on fire. What are you doing? Yoda asked. Won't those get infected? I flexed my fingers. Calluses build up faster this way. 72. I went to bed at 10 o'clock and slept for 13 hours. I spent all of Sunday catching up on homework. I read Fastus again and the passages of Paradise Lost that Salvatore hinted would be on the next test. Wrote an essay about the aftermath of the 3/5 compromise. Conjugated future conditional irregular verbs in French. Did calc until numbers oozed out of my ears. I even did an art history assignment, studied pictures of the early Renaissance, and wrote a reaction piece. I had to define Renaissance. At first, I wrote a gathering of military intelligence, like for a raid. Then I looked it up in the dictionary. Renaissance meant rebirth, and was a revival of culture and learning. The word I was thinking of was reconnaissance. An understandable mistake. While I studied, Mom and Hannah glided around the house like shadows I could barely see or hear. Dad wouldn't be home until Monday night, after dinner. The temperature dropped 20 degrees by sunset and the wind howled from the north. Shingles flapped on the roof. 73. I woke up in a sweat, tasting metal in my mouth. I panicked, grabbed the edge of my mattress, and tried to remember what I'd done with the gun. The fog lifted in my brain. No, I don't have it. No, I didn't do it. My lip had split open again in the night. There was a little blood on my pillow. I felt better after I brushed my teeth. I drove Yoda's car to school so he and Hannah could snuggle in the back seat. Riding shotgun were my backpack and a large plastic garbage bag tied at the top. I would not tell them what was in the bag. Yoda squeezed it and was relieved that it was soft. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine sputtered, then caught, and I pressed the accelerator. The engine roared. Instant boner. My hands sweated as I gripped the steering wheel. Time to drive, my license in my wallet glowing like plutonium. Tyler Miller, Lord of the Universe. I revved it one more time, redlining the tractometer. Hey, Yoda called from the back. Stop it. Are you trying to blow a gasket? I put it in gear and drove off, keeping to all posted speed limits. I did not go to my cell for homeroom. I went right to Hughes's office. His secretary said he'd be in meetings until third period and suggested I wait for him in my own personal Siberia. Sorry, I can't, I said. I have a couple of appointments. I'll be back. The guidance counselor wasn't expecting me either. I looked through some college catalogs while I waited and ripped out a few pages that looked promising. When she let me in, I shook her hand and explained what I wanted. She looked at me over the top of her glasses and said one word. Impossible. Please check my date of birth on your computer. Her fingers clicked on the keys. Oh, happy birthday. Thank you. But you still need a parent's signature to do this. District rules. No problem, I nodded. You get the papers together and I'll make sure they get signed. And can you give me a hall pass? I gave all the homework I'd done on Sunday to the secretary so she could put it in my teacher's boxes just as Hughes came in, his face red. He rifled through his phone messages and told me to follow him to his office. 2 hours wasted just so that they could tell me we're getting even less federal funding this year. He took off his coat and put it on a hanger. I didn't think it was possible to get even less federal funding, but there you go. As he put his coat in the closet, he muttered something about jackass mandates that I couldn't quite hear. He sat at his desk, glanced at the monitor, and finally looked at me. Have a seat. No thanks, I'll stand. Suit yourself. What's the problem? Deep breath, just like you planned it. It's not a problem, really. I thought I'd give you a heads up. I'm changing my schedule for next semester. I put my hands behind my back so he couldn't see them shaking. I'll get my parents to sign off on it tonight. Oh? Yes. And starting tomorrow, I'll be attending all of my classes. But we agreed. Deep breath. That was a dumb thing for me to do. I wasn't thinking straight. Now I am. I'm going to all of my classes tomorrow. And you should tell your spies and security people if I get hurt, if I get punched or knocked down or harassed more than the average student, I will contact the school board and the newspaper. I'm not the problem here, Mr. Hughes. I'm tired of feeling like I am. I stopped at the custodian's office on the way to the cafeteria and handed Joe my keys. While he jingled them in his hands, I apologized for stealing them. "Apology accepted," he finally said. "If the judge gives me more community service, can I do it with you?" He nodded. "No problem." He locked the keys in his desk drawer. "But if you ever take anything from me again, I'll kick your ass." Understood. The cafeteria was at full volume when I walked in. Feeding time in the monkey house. A few people watched as I passed the table where Yoda and Hannah sat. More noticed when I stopped in front of the table that occupied Chip and his minions, along with Bethany and a few of her underfed friends. "Get out of here," Chip said. "Not yet." I tossed the plastic bag at him. He grabbed it before it landed on his tray. "What's this?" "I thought your mother might want it back," I said. A low ooh started at the neighboring tables. Chip stood up as Bethany untied the bag and pulled out a pink blanket with satin edges. "That's the one that you threw over my head the night you beat me up," I said. "Parker," I pointed at him. "You were there, but I still can't figure out who the third guy was." "Austin? Jordy?" All eyes focused on Chip. "Get out before I flatten you." I turned to the kids behind me. "Did you hear what he said?" A couple heads nodded. "Any time, any place, Chippy," I said. He came around the end of the table and stood 6 inches away from me. "Right here, right now, loser." "Please hit me. Please hit me. Please hit me. Just go on, take a swing." "Bravo. Very good," I said. "Ask me to fight in a room with the most security." I pointed to the cafeteria monitor staring at us. "You think you can take me?" He shoved his chest forward like he was trying to show me his cleavage. "Just throw the first punch, Chippy. I'm begging." "You know I can. I let you win at your party. You were too scared to take me on in the locker room. When you finally got around to it last week, you needed 2 henchmen and a blankie. How pathetic is that?" At the corner of my eye, I could see a security guard walking toward us, and Bethany in a furious conversation with Parker, who looked like he wanted to hide in the mashed potatoes. "A real man faces his conflicts, Chippy. On his own." I started to walk away, then stopped and back up. "Just in case you decide to go crying to Daddy because I had the balls to talk to you." I flicked a card from Houston, Hegelman, and Keene so that it landed in the middle of the table. "Tell him to call my lawyer." The security guard walked me to the guidance counselor's office so I could pick up my paperwork, then to the attendance office so I could sign out, then to the front door. That was nice of him. As I approached the wall of doors that faced the flagpole, I saw Bethany's reflection in the glass. She was running toward us, carrying the pink blanket. "Tyler!" she called. I hesitated, my shoulder against the door. "I want to talk to you," she said, pouting, hands on her hips. I think we should talk." I smiled at her reflection, opened the door, and left. One more loose end. Since I didn't have an appointment, the secretary at the courthouse said I'd have to wait an hour before Mr. Benson could see me. While I was waiting, I called Pirelli Landscaping and left a message saying I could work weekends again if Mr. Pirelli was interested. My stomach gurgled. I hadn't eaten anything at lunch, and I was feeling sick from all the homework the night before. The taste of the Beretta was in my mouth and nose, lurking in the background. I put 3 sticks of gum in my mouth and pulled out a Highlights magazine from the stack on the table. I used to love going to the dentist so I could read it. I kept one hand curled around the edge of the chair to keep me steady. I wasn't on thin ice anymore, but everything still felt slippery. There was a chance I was going to fall flat on my face, but I had to keep moving. Mr. Benson did not flash his possum teeth when I was finally ushered into his office. I explained I was trying to take control of a few things, and I wanted to know what was going to happen to my probation because the party was a violation. "Assuming you're not arrested?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. "Yes, assuming that." He put his hands behind his head and asked me a few questions about school and life and attitude and girlfriends and just about everything except the kind of underwear I wore. I didn't think it would be so complicated, but I answered everything and tried not to sweat. He finally set the front legs of the chair on the floor. He finally set the front legs of the chair back on the floor. "If they let you off the hook for the camera thing, no charges at all, I'll recommend another 6 months of probation and community service. The judge will probably accept my recommendations. What do you think? Sounds fair. Can I work with the janitors again? Don't see why not. He stood up. I did the same and reached out to shake his hand. Thank you, sir. Pleasure's all mine. The day had unfolded precisely the way I had planned. The bus showed up at the corner just as I left the courthouse. I got a seat that didn't smell funny. An abandoned newspaper was on the seat next to me. When I read about a car crash, I did not imagine myself going through the windshield. When I read about a fire, I did not feel the flames. I was a boy on a bus going somewhere for a change. The walk from the bus to Yoda's house took 10 minutes. His parents had just gone grocery shopping and their pantry was packed with snacks and sodas. So we took a couple armloads to the basement where I spent the afternoon kicking his butt in Empire far, far away. It was a perfect day right up until the hysterical phone call from my mother. 74. Didn't matter how many times I saw it, a police car in my driveway always gave me a jolt. Mom jumped off the living room couch and threw herself at me, hugging hard enough to fracture my ribs. Her mascara was running in 2 black crayon streaks down her face. I patted her on the back, tried to breathe, and looked around for my sister. She wasn't there. Officer Adams was. He studied the shine on his shoes and the cobwebs strung by the crown molding as we waited for her to finish. Mom pulled away with a loud gulp. Sorry, she said. I didn't realize how scared I was until just this moment. She smoothed the mascara lines on my shirt. Have a seat, Adams suggested. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Mom sat on the couch. I stayed on my feet. What's going on? Adams cleared his throat. We've arrested a student from Forestdale this morning for all the crimes associated with the photographs taken of Bethany Milbury. What's his name? I can't tell you. He's 16. Mom puddled up again and snagged the Kleenex out of the box on the end table. Why him? We received a couple of tips about his behavior at the party. Our computer guys were able to trace the original uploads of the photos to an account paid for by the suspect's grandmother. The grandmother is loaded and we've been fencing with her lawyers all week. But we have the evidence we need now. He's going to do time, no question about it. The words rippled through me. I apologize for any inconvenience, Adam said, but we had to perform a thorough investigation. Tyler? Mom said. Honey, are you okay? You sure? I repeated. You're not going to come back next week and say that you've changed your mind? Adams explained the whole thing again. He added that he had emailed the school administrators and he would follow up with a phone call to Mr. Hughes in the morning. My deputy is putting your computer back in your room right now, he said. If you have any problems with it, don't hesitate to give our office a call. He stood up and straightened the crease in his pants. I imagine you're relieved. I'm sorry we couldn't clear this up any faster. He looked at me. It was my turn to speak or burst into tears, show some gratitude at least. I didn't feel grateful. I just felt tall. The deputy came downstairs, Hannah close behind. Adam stood up. You'll need to call your PO officer this week. Already did, I said. I met with him this afternoon. Adams nodded. I'll make sure his office gets the paperwork. I'm sorry again for the inconvenience. When will Dad be home? I asked as the cop pulled out of sight. His plane landed an hour ago, Mom said. He had an emergency meeting with Bryce. Do you want Chinese or pizza? Something hit the house just as Mom, Hannah, and I were about to dig into our stress-free MSG-enhanced meal in the family room with Alex Trebek. Mom had lit a fat white candle for atmosphere. The soda cans were popped and the soy sauce was poured. The car turned into the driveway too fast. There was a squeal of brakes and a slight thud, which turned out to be Dad's car hitting the back wall of the garage. The house shook again seconds later when he slammed the door. He made it to the family room with 6 quick strides. He stopped when he saw me at the end of the couch. You son of a bitch! My heart lurched, but I forced myself to slurp up the last strands of Milo Maine. Look who's home! His jacket and tie were missing, the 2 top buttons unbuttoned. There were sweat stains under his arms. His eyes were bloodshot and his comb-over looked like a squirrel had run through it. Mom shook her head. Tyler, hush! Dad swayed and put his hand on the wall to balance himself. You little bastard! I opened another packet of soy sauce and poured it on my noodles. Those names insult Mom, not me. Want to try again? Hannah gasped. That's it. He started across the carpet for me. I wait until he's in arm's reach. I wait until he hits me, until he's off balance and unprepared. I punch him square in the middle of his body. I collapse his lungs and stop his heart. He drops to the ground. I stood up. No, Bill, no! Mom shrieked as she stepped in between me and Dad. What are you doing? Proud of yourself? He asked over Mom's shoulder. You finally stuck it to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Milbury fired me. He's blaming me for Nebraska. He wants to sacrifice me to the feds, but we both know the real story, don't we, Tyler John? You've been drinking, Bill, Mom said. Please calm down. Shut up, Linda. As the words hit, Mom's head snapped up. Her chin jutted forward. I pick him up by the throat and slowly lift him until his feet dangle about 3 inches off the floor. He can't make a sound. His fingers desperately claw at my hands. His feet kick and I squeeze. Mom let go of Dad and walked over to stand next to Hannah, in arm's reach of the fireplace poker. The police were here, she said. They arrested the boy who took those photos. Tyler's completely innocent. What? He cocked his head to one side. It's over, Mom said. The whole thing. She filled him in on what the police told us, her voice like glass. Dad paused, his forehead wrinkled with effort. You're sure this isn't a trick? Disappointed? I asked. He smoothed his hair over the top of his scalp, trying to line them up between his fingers. That doesn't change anything. Your shenanigans cost me my job. That means no money, no college, no house. I don't understand, Hannah said. How did Tyler get you fired? He threatened to beat the crap out of the Mulberry son at school. There were like 20 witnesses. He's obsessed with that family. I scratched my chin. My beard was finally starting to grow in faster. Wrong, I said. You were fired because you screwed up. Or maybe you're a scapegoat. But it wasn't me. Enough! Dad's arms hit the closest TV tray. 3 containers of food flew through the air and smacked the wall with a wet sound, the flickering candle glittering like tracer fire before it was put out by the duck sauce. Mom's cheeks were flecked with black drops of soy sauce. Hannah whimpered. Dad spun on his heel and disappeared down the stairs to the basement. Alex Trebek told us to stay tuned. Hannah helped Mom sit down on the couch, then picked up the remote and turned off the television. Why'd you have to make it worse? She asked me. You could have just let him calm down. I picked the napkin off the floor, sat down next to Mom, and wiped the gunk off her face. Are you okay? I asked. He's under a lot of stress. She took the napkin for me. We all are. She walked over to the mess on the carpet. Let's pick this up. Oh no, there's wax on the carpet. While Hannah and I picked up the remnants of dinner, Mom twisted an ice cube tray in the kitchen. The sound of the ice cracking echoed off the appliances and tile like a gunshot. Made me jump. She came in carrying the ice in one hand and 2 $20 bills in the other one. I want you to go to the movies, she said. Tyler, you can drive the van. License is in the box on your dad's bureau. I know. Hannah interrupted. Aren't you coming with us? I have a headache, Mom said. I'm going to rest. That way your father will have a quiet house. Hannah said something soothing about Tylenol and cold compresses. My hands itched. The open blisters were on fire. The heat spread up my arms, across my shoulders, and down my body like a sheet of flame that welded all my bits and pieces together. I looked down at the carpet, half expecting to see it melted under my feet. The table lamps seemed to have new bulbs in them, clean bulbs that highlighted the grease spots on the wall, every line of my mother's face, and the nervous glances that Hannah sent to the back basement door. Their shadows were stark. Hannah pretended to smile as she buried Mom's money into a deep pocket in her jeans. Mom crouched down and put the ice cube on the wax on the carpet. This is bullshit, I blurted out. What? Why can't we just admit what's going on here? Sending us to the movies, pretending you need a nap. It's all bullshit. Covering it up just makes it worse. Don't, Ty, Hannah said. We're all just trying to get through this, Mom said. That's not good enough, I said. Not anymore. I crossed the room and opened the basement door, walked down the first 3 steps. No one is to come down here, roared William T. Miller. I retreated up the stairs to the kitchen, reached in the front hall closet, and took out the baseball bat. Without looking at my mother, I adjusted my armor and headed back down. 75. It was dark down there, but I could see him in his recliner, his shoes off, his headphones already on, and music flowing through them. He hadn't touched his computer. I flicked the overhead lights on. His eyes opened. I need to be alone, Tyler. I walked past the recliner to the bookcase that held his stereo equipment, crouched down and unplugged the receiver. Dad rocked the recliner forward and threw his headphones on the ground. Don't push me! I stood up. I want to talk. Put the bat down. Forget it. His eyes widened. Excuse me? You heard me. You're not going to scream and intimidate me. Not today, Dad. The hand holding the bat was sweating. Mom crept down the stairs, afraid that she would find at the bottom. Is everything okay? Leave us alone, Linda, Dad said. I leaned against the door that led to the storage room, my left hand resting on the table covered with dusty train sets. Santa was still riding high. The mountaintop was dirty. This will only take a minute, I said. She should stay. Mom's eyes ran back and forth between Dad and me, and she slowly sank down and sat on the third step from the bottom. Dad's eyes narrowed. You have 2 seconds. Give him a chance, Bill, Mom said. This is between me and him, Linda. Be quiet. My heart pounded, double time, a hammer beating on the inside of my ribs. My mouth went dry, adrenaline surged, screaming through my brain, begging me to take him down. The red haze filtered over everything like a light rain. I'm a part of this, Mom insisted. Go upstairs. Shut up. I said it calmly, the way that you say, looks like rain, or the mail's here. Mom drew in a little breath and hugged herself. What did you just say? Dad stepped toward me, his wings unfolding. I told you to shut up. How dare you, Dad spat. You ungrateful. Bill, don't you see what's going on here? Mom pleaded. Shut up! Shut up, shut up, shut up! Dad yelled, his fist balled tight. There it was, a faint click. I felt more than I heard. Something snapped. I picked up the bat, brought it up in a perfect arc, and achieved maximum velocity and force. Then smashed his model train set, sending Santa plunging down the mountain, exploding the pretend world. Thwack, thwack, thwack. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mom screamed. Dad grabbed at my arms. Thwack, 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 thwack. Temporary rivets holding me together loosened, glowing hot under the pressure that prevented me from turning the bat on my father, breaking it over his head until he was a pile of splintered bones and broken track, beating him until the wheels came off. I hit the train table harder so I wouldn't hit him. Mom screamed again, and Hannah was there, and Dad finally stepped back, and I stopped. All I could hear was my breath coming fast and hard and loud, like I was underwater and wearing an oxygen mask connected to a heavy tank strapped to my back, and the only sound that could fit in my head was the rasping air going in and out of my lungs. I set the bat down carefully at my feet, lifted my head, and pushed the hair out of my face. I was soaked, as if I had walked through a storm. I took another deep breath. The sound filtered in. Mom patting Hannah's back, Hannah trying not to cry. Dad saying, It's okay, Tyler. It's okay. Calm down. It's okay. The red haze lifted. I licked my lips and wiped my hands on my jeans. The blisters burned. I'm going to talk now. My father nodded once. Please sit down. Dad sat at the edge of his recliner. His black socks drooped around his ankle. Mom and Hannah retreated to the foot of the stairs, their eyes darting between my father and me. Thank you, I said. I emptied my pocket and handed $420 in bills to him. That's your money, I said. I stole it from your closet on Saturday. I spent $20 hitting balls. Dad's face was stone. You were in my room. I needed money to go to Minnesota. What? Mom whispered. I hear it's nice there. I figured it would be a good place to start over on my own. The furnace kicked on. Will you get me a garbage can? I asked my sister. The black one in the garage. And call Yoda. Tell him I'm coming back. Hannah had a puzzled look on her face, but she went upstairs. I took a deep, slow breath and waited for her to be out of earshot. What made you stay? Mom asked. Dad's gun. You touched my gun? He gripped the chair. Why? I asked you to shut up. Mom started to cry. I couldn't look at her because if I did, I might fall apart, and Dad would take control again, and it would be the same as before, only worse. I crouched next to the train wreck and picked up a broken engine. I didn't really want to run away. I wanted to die. I turned the engine over and over in my hands. The smoke track and wheels had snapped off, but the body was whole. But you didn't, Dad said. I opened my mouth. I knew my voice was going to crack. I cleared my throat and waited. Dad didn't know what to do with his hands. He rubbed them once on his thighs. He crossed his arms over his chest and then immediately uncrossed them. He kept his eyes on the carpet stain 6 inches to the left of me. I tried again. I had the gun in my mouth and my finger on the trigger. Mom cried silently, rocking back and forth. Dad flinched but quickly recovered. What stopped you? I looked in the mirror and realized I was already dead. I let you kill me, one piece at a time. Starting back when I was, 8? 9? You killed yourself and then you came after the rest of us. My eyes were leaking again. Damn. I wiped them on my sleeve. I never hit you. Dad's voice shook. I sacrificed everything to give you a good life and a nice home, something better than I had. You're a real success story, Mr. Miller. You got the big house, but nobody lives here. Not really, anyway. I tossed the engine in the trash heap. So, I'm not dead. I'm not going to be dead for a long time, I hope. Are you blaming me for this? Dad asked. I let the question hang there, spinning. Mom was crying raw sobs, gasping for air. Dad looked smaller than he had 5 minutes earlier, like the air was being let out through a small hidden puncture. Do I blame you? The words came out slowly. Absolutely. You loaded the gun and put it in my hand. I blame myself, too. I let you do it. I stood up and brushed my hands off. I'm not going to military school, and I'm dropping most of my AP classes. What? Dad sputtered. If you don't agree, I'll drop out. If you drop out, you can't live here. His voice was higher, wobbly. More air was rushing out of him, his cheeks hollow, his skin beginning to collapse. Fine. I figured you wouldn't pay for my college either. No problem. You did it, Dad. How hard could it be? Hannah came down the stairs holding a garbage can. I took it from her and set it next to the disaster site. What's going on? She asked. Dad has to clean up his mess, I said. 76. I ate dinner at Yoda's house. His parents had cooked turkey meatloaf and beet salad and squash. No wonder Yoda was the way he was. I ate everything they put in front of me and drank 3 glasses of milk. Yoda and his parents talked about Case Western Reserve University, and if it really was a better choice than Ohio State. Every time Mrs. Hodges asked me if I was feeling well, I did the polite thing and lied. Yoda explained what was going on when I was in the bathroom. When I came back to the table, his mother said that she thought it would be best if I stayed the night. After dinner, we sat in the family room and I watched his father watch the news for a while. Then Yoda and I went downstairs with a box of cookies. He turned on the television to one of the music channels and muted it. I've been thinking about your problem, he said. You make it sound like I have a skin condition, I said. You need another option. Besides running away or beating my father to death? Exactly. Damn. I put 2 cookies in my mouth. You could stay here. Until graduation? I don't think so. Why not? My parents like you. They think you're a good influence. I snorted cookie crumbs and coughed. Wait until they get to know me better. You can't afford an apartment. I know. There's always the Army or Navy. Funny, Yoda said. Ha, I said. I stuffed more cookies in my mouth. Yoda did the same thing. We chewed our cud, watching booties and boobs and fat rappers getting out of slick cars. You forgot to mention that I could gut it out at home, I said. I do happen to live there. And who knows, maybe I'll get lucky and they'll arrest my dad for whatever happened in Omaha. It could happen, Yoda said. Pigs could also fly out of my butt, too. You never know. I slept on his couch under a pile of Afghans. I passed out after midnight and slept like death until just before 7, when the sound of Yoda's snoring really nearly caused the walls to cave in. It took a couple of minutes to figure out where I was and why I was there. Once I orientated myself, I laid back down and pulled the Afghan up under my chin. I was chilled, but it felt like I had a sunburn, the kind that burns but itches at the same time, and you can't stop yourself from scratching, even though it's just going to make it worse. My hands ached, my shoulders were sore, and my stomach was killing me, either from the cookies or everything else. There was no way to get comfortable. The sky around the edges of the curtains was pale. I got up and put my clothes on, folding the Afghans and scribbling a note that I put on the center of Yoda's keyboard. I went up the stairs, holding my sneakers and staying on the edges of the tread so they wouldn't sneak. I made it out the door without a sound. 77. It was warmer than I thought it would be, and bright enough to make me squint. I left my jacket open. The street smelled strangely of tar, which made me worry I was hallucinating. I turned the corner and saw the street crew that was repairing potholes that had grown large enough to swallow whole car tires. The tar smelled like summer, even though everything around me looked like it was dying into fall. I was going to walk past my house to see if it was still standing. I felt like the game-winning runner on third base, waiting for the signal to sprint and dive home. 1 part nervous excitement, 9 parts nausea. It was finally beginning to sink in what I had done. Mom would let me take my clothes, that was a given. The computer would be harder, but if I had to get by using the computer in the library, I could do it. At the very least, I had to get my social security card and my passport, and I needed my textbooks, something to read, and my boots for when it snowed. I had been watching the sidewalk, looking for the heaves and cracks that send you landing on your face, so I didn't look up at the house until I turned up the driveway. He was sitting on the front steps. He was wearing the same clothes he had on the night before, except he had sneakers on, and a beige comforter from his bed wrapped around his shoulders. The road crew's truck beeped a high-pitched warning as it backed up. Crows roosting in the maple tree called back. "Hello," he said. I watched, listened. "I wondered if you would come back." He tugged on the comforter. "Wondered all night, in fact." "Did Mom kick you out?" I asked. "No. She thought about it, talked about it, but she went to sleep. I couldn't sleep, I mean." I watched. He shifted closer to the railing. "Will you sit with me?" The truck stopped backing and beeping. Okay. I sat. The concrete was a slab of ice under my butt. "Do you want to sit on this?" he asked, offering the blanket. "I'm fine," I said. We both stared straight ahead. A television would have been nice, something we could both pretend to look at, but all we had was the lawn gone dormant for the winter and the street awaiting pothole repairs. "My father beat me with his belt a couple of times a week for my entire childhood," he said. "That's why I swore I'd never hit you or your sister. And I never did." "No, you didn't." But it wasn't enough. I picked at the edge of a popped blister. "No," I said quietly. "It's not." He rubbed his hand along the sandpaper beard stubble. "I'm sorry." I held my breath. I thought I was different than he was. The road crew poured hot tar and asphalt into the cracks in the road and tamped it down. "Are they going to arrest you?" I asked. "At work?" "I don't know. I have to get a lawyer." "Good idea." The crew filled the hole at the bottom of our driveway. "Your sister said you slept at Calvin's last night." I nodded. "That was nice of them. They're nice people. We had meatloaf." "Meatloaf is nice." "Yeah." When the crew moved down the road, Dad stood up. "Are you hungry?" We both poured bowls of cereal. Dad started at the coffee maker and made toast. He put butter on his and mine. I added raspberry jam. We sat down facing each other and ate in silence, except for the slurps of milk on the spoon and the crunch of toast. We took turns studying the backyard out the window and examining the grains of wood in the kitchen table. When I was finished eating, I carried my bowl and plate to the dishwasher and put them in. "Did you get enough?" he asked. "I'm still kind of hungry," I admitted. "I could fry up some eggs," he offered. "I can do it myself," I said. He sipped the last of his coffee. "You want a couple?" I asked. He blinked. "Yes, that would be nice. Sunny side up." "I know." I opened the refrigerator door and took out a carton of eggs. When I turned back to the stove, he was standing in front of me, his eyes wet and lost. "I don't want you to leave us." His throat tightened and he clenched his teeth. I put the egg carton on the counter. "I don't know what I'm supposed to say." He coughed once. "I'm bad at this. I'm sorry." He fought for control, the muscles in his jaw rippling. "I will try to do better. Everything. I'll try." I put my arms around him. He pulled me close, hugging me back. He groaned, an agonizing sound deep inside, and I worried that maybe he was having a stroke, but he didn't let go. I did. I let myself break apart and lean all of my weight on him. He held me closer and patted my back like I was a little kid, whispering to me until we both felt like we could stand on our own. He wiped the tears off my face. I did the same for him. We ate eggs, bacon, sausage, and Pop-Tarts and polished off the orange juice. We talked a little, but not too much. I brought in the paper and handed him the business section. I read the sports and comics. Then we traded. 78. Dad didn't go down to the basement after breakfast. Progress. He fell asleep on the couch with the newspaper on his stomach. Mom and Hannah tried to make a big deal out of me being home, but I asked them to stop, so they did. Mom took over the kitchen table to go through real estate listings and watched Dad out of the corner of her eye. Hannah went to Yoda's house. I played Toffet to empty my brain and numb everything else. Gormley grew exponentially stronger, and I scored an obscene amount of spell points and kills. By dinner time, I had finally made it. Level 1. I put the game on pause just long enough to inhale a stack of grilled cheese sandwiches and tell Mom that yes, everything was fine. I just had a lot of work to do on the computer. The confrontation with the Lord of Darkness was 37 minutes of mad skills and sick mayhem. I won. I beat the game. And then a news screen, one I'd never seen before, never even heard of, popped up. It gave me a choice. I could become the new Lord of Darkness myself, or I could take a gamble and be reincarnated. I chose wisely.